Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where it's a National Hunt special. This is our Jumpers to Follow podcast. We did it 2 years ago, actually. It went very well. I don't know why we didn't get one out last year, but we are back with the Jumpers to Follow podcast. And most importantly, we're back with our Matchbook ambassador, Olly Murphy, joined by Steve Jones, Micheál, Deasy, Sam Turner as well. We've got Olly for 15 minutes, so we'll get a few questions over to him. Olly, welcome along. Can I start by talking about the other side of the fence, which has got episode 2 out now, I know, where Charlie Post is breaking in some horses. It looked like Charlie enjoyed that. You obviously enjoyed being part of it too, and it just shows something a little bit different, Olly.
Yeah, no, it does 100%, Tom. Just shows kind of, obviously what happens as soon as they come back from the sales, which a lot of people wouldn't kind of really realise. So, Charlie and Fran are a big part of my setup. Obviously, the first steps that those horses take are very important. So, they do a great job, and plenty of my nice horses have come out of there, and hopefully we'll send in the years to follow as well.
How many new horses, if you like, have you got in the yard this year? Obviously, you know it's a jumps game, so you're by and large keeping horses for a little bit longer. But I know you like to bring in a nice new crop of horses every year. How many are we talking this year, Olly?
I'd say in between 30 and 40, Tom, horses that you guys won't have seen on a racetrack, whether they're 4-year-olds which haven't run, or point-to-point recruits, or horses off the flat, or new horses that have been sent to me. So a healthy number. We've had a big turnover of horses now during the summer months. Certain horses getting moved on, and fresh blood coming in, which I always think is important. So just a really exciting time of the year now.
All right, let's ask you about some horses in particular, because I know the panel want to ask you about some horses. Jonesy also asked if we could just ask you anything, so God knows what he's got up his Steve, first of all, which horse did you want to ask Olly about?
A horse called Chasing Fire, who won at Wetherby back in March, a bumper. That was the only start for you, wasn't it, Olly? And it's a bumper that's got a real pedigree. Hillcrest and Super Sunday, Good Boy Bobby all won that. And I just wondered where sort of he is in the pecking order of your horses to go novice hurdling.
Yeah, he's right up there. His work was second to none the day he won in Wetherby. He was a horse who always showed us a lot at home. I think he surprised Aidan kind of how quick he picked up that day and put the race to bed within a matter of strides. The second's gone on and won a bumper since. But yeah, he's a horse I really like. His jumping's been very good. He'll start from the 2-mile maiden hurdle somewhere, and hopefully he can take kind of high ranking in that division this year. But yeah, he's a horse that I like by Maxios, and one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, he's got a pretty special pedigree because he's a nephew of Micheál, who of course won the St. Leger, and it's gone on to be one of the top jump stallions. So he's got the promise and the pedigree. When, in general terms, you're looking at horses, your dad's obviously been a very successful bloodstock agent. Where do you look at the pedigree? Do you put more weight on the pedigree or the actual look of the horse and the conformation?
Yeah, I'd imagine when we get the store sales, we kind of tend to buy a horse with a decent pedigree. If they've got no form to their name, you can relax a little bit on that side of things if they've gone and won or shown something, albeit you'd still like them to have a good pedigree. There's certain sires that aren't lucky for certain trainers, and you wouldn't be so keen to go and buy a horse by a certain sire, but that's the same with everyone. But when they've got a bit of form to their name, you can kind of forgive one or two things where you probably wouldn't buy them as unraced 3-year-olds.
And what would be your favourite kind of stallions?
Good question. I've got a few Dr. Dinos, which obviously a very good French sire now. They're very, very hard to buy at present. Obviously, Walk in the Park is the complete rave at the moment. We've an awful lot of them around the place, so I hope he carries on performing as a stallion or else I'm going to be pretty light at the top end. But certain horses are lucky for you, certain sires are lucky for you. Okavango probably wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. I've got a couple by Okavango, a horse called Yukon Tango and a horse called Rambo T. They weren't expensive horses, 40 or 50 grand kind of horses once they're only placed in point to points. I don't think they stay 3 miles, so they didn't manage to win their points, and they've come to me and step back down and trip, and they both look well above average. So it's what you're lucky doing, and size you're lucky with, and yeah, he's certainly one I've been lucky with at Okavango.
I've written both of those down. They'll be on They'll be on the horses to follow list somewhere else. Don't you worry. Sam, who did you want to ask Ollie about? Anything else?
Yeah, they'll be on the Tom Stanley private service, won't they? To all good customers. Ollie, one horse I really loved was Go Dante, who obviously won his bumper really well at Wincanton, went well backed, and then really impressive at Bangor. Things didn't quite go to plan for him after that, but you really minded him. You were careful not to overface him last year. Do you think that patience will be borne out this year?
Yeah, do you know what, Sam? Probably a lot of people wouldn't know. He actually got an injury after Newbury, and he won his bumper in Wincanton. He never came off the bridle again. A horse I thought the world of at home before we went to Wincanton, so I wasn't surprised to see him kind of win the fashion that he did. I then had him actually declared to run in the Aintree bumper, and I was actually up my hotel in Aintree on the Thursday, and Jared, my assistant, rang and said Godante's lame. I'm not sure whether he'll be able to run tomorrow. Anyway, vet came in, looked like he'd pulled a muscle, was non-runnered, and that was him for the season. He came back came back into training again the following season for a novice hurdle campaign, and he was never really jumped with any kind of great enthusiasm, and I'm just not so sure whether he didn't have a real deep underlying issue all through the summer and all through the start of last season, from the moment he ran in Bangor to when he finishing fourth in the Grade 1 in Newbury. He jumped okay when he won in Bangor. He jumped dreadful when he got beat in a so-called match race at Ascot. We then ran him straight in a Grade 1, and he actually ran remarkably well considering he fractured his pelvis that day. So yeah, he's a horse I still think the world of. He's back in training. I think he looks better than ever. I think he's a mark of 128, if I remember rightly, or certainly in and around that mark. And yeah, Barry's got no experience. I'd like to think he is extremely well handicapped. I was adamant he was the real deal. I really was, and I still stand by that. And if he is, he'll be winning a handicap of 128 sooner rather than later, and I'll be proved right. He came back in probably 6 weeks later than everything else. He did a month on a water treadmill, so he's going to be a little bit behind, but I'd say back end of November he'll start off in a 2.5 mile handicap somewhere, and I'm really looking forward to him.
Okay, well, nobody watches this, so we'll be all right. We'll still be able to get a price about him. What ground and what trip would you be looking for first up?
I'd say we'd start him off over 2.5 miles. Aidan was always of the opinion that he wasn't a slow horse, but I just think 2.5 miles is slowing down for him. He's that year older again, and he's have a very good pedigree, and they used to stay at trips. So we'll go to a fair track the first day. Probably try and find a handicap where there aren't going to be a million runners, as he hasn't got a lot of experience, and kind of plot our season from there. But he's a horse I love. He's got like so much raw talent, and I'm really looking forward to him.
Yeah, he's from a lovely family as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. We actually bought his full sister on the back of him winning a bumper, which sometimes is the right thing to do and sometimes isn't the right thing to do. But she's a queen as well. She'll be seen in a bumper now in the autumn, all being well. She's called Little Miss Dante.
Super. And does Barbara own her as well?
Barbara owns her as well. So yeah, we'll hopefully keep the family going. Strange, obviously Angela Harlan was a sister as well, and I actually got sent her. I didn't buy her, and we've kind of followed the pedigree through, and yeah, it's a really good pedigree.
Yeah, good luck with him.
Thank you very much.
Dease, who is? I know who your horse is because it was my dark horse to follow a couple of years ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
Sorry. The horse I'm on about is Tamar Bridge. He's owned by the McNeils. He did me a few favours at the start of the season last year. A certain podcast host told me he probably wouldn't win that entry race, but I ignored his advice. I thought he looked really good winning that entry race. He beat some kind of good hardened handicappers, but I think he might have just went off the boil a bit towards in his next two runs. Just wondering how he is and what are the plans from this year.
Yeah, he's absolutely fine. So he is. Kind of blame myself really for his season last year. He won his novice hurdle in Wetherby really well. Then went to Aintree and won a good handicap, and we then decided it was only kind of 3 weeks later. He had a very very hard race in Aintree now, bottomless ground during they raced from turning into the line and obviously got up in the head bobber. So yeah, we then went to Cheltenham New Year's Day. I just ran him back too quick. It was simple as that. And I think through running him back too quick that day, I left his season in Cheltenham as well. So yeah, he's a horse. When he gets a hard race now, I don't think he'll be seen for 6 weeks after getting a hard race. He's a big idle horse that just kind of keeps finding. So he does kind of end up giving himself a hard race each time he runs. But yeah, from winning an Aintree, I shouldn't have gone to Cheltenham in December. It was New Year's Day. It was the complete wrong thing to do. So yeah, that's kind of why after Aintree his form tailed off. He then had a poor run in Haydock again then after. But I wouldn't mind his last 2 runs. I'd look back at his Wetherby run and his Aintree success, and yeah, he's a horse who'll go jumping fences. I'm sure he's gonna be a lovely staying chaser.
That was going to be my next question. Is he staying over the hurdles, or is he going chasing?
No, he's going to go chasing. He actually jumped a fence at the back end of last year before we turned him out and jumped really well. He's a funny horse. I'll tell you a very quick story about me. You'll enjoy this. He was a horse who never really showed a whole pile at home. He's just a real average workhorse. And we ran him in a bumper at Haydock, and Adrian Heskin was actually off injured. And I rang Adrian. I said, this horse works so bad. I said, we cannot run him because there'll be fireworks. We can't run the horse. His work wasn't good enough. We've got to wait till he does a slightly better bit of work. And Adrian went, do you know what? Just run him. We're going to run the bumper before we go jumping hurdles. And yeah, we'll move on from them. Anyway, I sent him up to Haydock, and I remember saying to Ian Turner, Max's racing manager, and Greg Stone and Max that run this horse's work had been ordinary and very much a watching brief. And he came off the bridle turning in Haydock. I thought he'll fall out the back of the TV screen here. And all he did was keep picking up and picking up and picking up and picking up. Anyway, he got up the shadows of the post. I was never, ever to the day as surprised to see a horse win a bumper as I was him. And do you know what? When I gallop him now, I'd gallop him with literally the worst horse in the yard, just for his confidence. He's that bad a workhorse, and he's a proper 130 plus. Hopefully even better than that staying chaser in the making. So it just shows it doesn't matter what they do at home some of the time.
Now I'm confused, Olly, because I'm sure you gave me that horse as a horse to follow before he ran. So you basically gave me the worst workhorse in the yard. That's great.
He always showed us loads jumping, but yeah, his work was always very, very average. But I was proved right, Tom, in the long run.
Yeah, you were. You were spot on. We've had a couple of comments in. Ronan and Groom's horse is the same as mine. So Gunsight Ridge. Could you ask Olly about Gunsight Ridge? Potentially well handicapped for 2 mile chases? ? I mean, was it a case at the back end of last year, Olly, that he always gave his all, didn't he? And he had a couple of hard races. Where is he now?
Trainer error again, Tom. Sandown, great track. Horses get extremely hard races there. He had a very, very hard race when he won the good 2 mile handicap there after Christmas. And he then had a very, very hard race when arguably lads took each other on when he went back there and ran a good handicap chase at the end of January. Gave himself a very, very hard race that day. And I think I left my season there. Freshened him up. Thought Aintree was his Gold Cup, which it was, but he had a very kind of hard mid part of the season, and yeah, that was the long and short. He obviously went off favourite for the Red Rum. I've no doubt he's well capable of winning a good handicap. Those valuable races around Ascot, I think, will suit him well. I think going up to 2.5 miles and maybe riding him a little bit more patiently as well wouldn't be the worst thing to do. So, a few options with him. Still handicapped to win a nice race. I've just tweaked his wind again as well. So yeah, very accurate jumper, Tom. But yeah, he was beat after he jumped 2 fences in the Red Rum, and yeah, a long holiday kind of was awaiting him.
A couple more, because I know we're going to say goodbye to you in a minute. Daniel Overall says, how is Copperless? Will we see him back this season? Are there provisional plans in place for him? Won the Swinton in 21, did he not? And we haven't seen him since.
No, hasn't been seen since. Yeah, again, a very, very good horse. To win a 100 grand handicap like he did, he never came off the bridle and won 12 lengths or whatever he did. We were actually talking about him this morning. He's got a mark 141. I'm not really sure where to start him off. Again, he's probably 6 weeks behind the others. I didn't know whether it was a crazy thing to do, starting him off in a fighting 5th, or whether he'd be a long way short. I'm not sure, but I'd love to get either a prep run into him and go to Ascot for the old Labrock. I can't think what it's called now. Racing Welfare handicap hurdle at Hunter's Call, one at Christmas. yeah, he's going to be a tricky horse to place before getting a prep run into him. But I'd love to either run him in a fighting fifth, and it'd either knock the edge off him and he can go for a Ladbroke, or if he ran very well in a fighting fifth, then he's going to be a champion hurdle horse. I know you lads are looking at me thinking you're on drugs, but he was going to win.
That's just Steve's face, Ollie. That's what Steve himself.
He was going to win the boys' race in Aintree, having not come out of second gear. He won a 100 grand handicap, being the Swinton by 12 lengths, beating Camprond. The country mile. The form of that race worked out really well, and I don't know. I just think if he improved another stone, I'm not telling you he's going to win a champion hurdle or anything like that, but he could be a horse who could be competitive enough in that kind of division. I haven't a clue where Constitution Hill's going to start. Is Epatante going to stay at 2 miles and go 2.5? And apart from that, over this side of the water, listen, it's all very well until you go and run a horse in them and try and win those kind of races. But I'm not so sure it's the strongest of divisions. If you've got something that's rated in and around 150, that is a 2 mile hurdler, but I might be wrong. You're the experts.
You don't know how good he could be yet, do you? I mean,
no.
Is the ground imperative to him? Would you say?
He's a Cave Tara. He has had his wind tweaked. I don't think he's a horse who wants very heavy ground now. No. But the day he won the Swinton, I was a little bit nervous. It absolutely poured rain, and it was soft ground that day. I know it's ages ago, but after he won, he was second favourite Galway hurdle, and he got a little niggle, but he had a small fracture of his pelvis, and then he had a problem with the hind suspensory as well. So he is a hard horse to train. Just great to get another month or 6 weeks under his belt before talking about any plans. But I just thought if he reproduced his Swinton hurdle form, I think he's only had 4 or 5 starts over hurdles as well. So he's very, very unexposed if we can get him back to that kind of form.
Just one more quick question, Ollie, if I could. How do you go about training a horse like that? Obviously he's quite fragile in disposition and conformation. How do you get him fit and ready to fight?
Obviously everyone's aware that I train a deep Wexford sand gallop. So I just think in all aspects in life, speed kills, speed causes injuries. So just trying to do as much kind of steady work with him as possible, just to get that real core fitness into him before kind of stepping him up. So yeah, without putting too much pressure on his limbs for the first 6 or 8 weeks, do as much steady work as you can just to get that kind of real core fitness into him. So that's the plan at the moment anyway. Good.
Glad someone asked about Copper Less. Daniel, thank you very much indeed. Last question, Deasy, you had one more for Ollie?
Yeah, just one more. Maybe one people mightn't have heard of yet was a horse we saw when we were over videoing in your yard. Actually, we saw this horse absolutely ping a hurdle, and he won very well a few weeks after. The horse is called Sure Touch. He's owned by Gigi's. He 3 nice wins there in the summer. I'm just wondering, where is he going?
Yeah, he might get a Worcester on Friday. He's been a real fun horse through the summer. He's won his 3 starts on a bit of nice grounds. He's going to go to Worcester on Friday. He's a horse who got beat off a mark of 107 in the winter, and he's off 120 now, having not run the handicap again. So doesn't quite seem right, albeit hopefully he's improved for getting a bit of confidence under his belt, and he'll jump a fence as well. So yeah, real fun horse. He's out of Libertine. Do you remember her, guys?
Yeah.
Mare of Robert Whaley Kearns. So yeah, he's got a real good pedigree.
Did she sweat up and then win the Cathcart?
Correct. Yeah. That's her. Yeah, that's her. So yeah, one of Mr. Whaley Kearns has got a very good pedigree, and yeah, he's been a fun horse.
Steve, the Cathcart was a race that used to be the Cheltenham Festival.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I'm here for you. Good stuff. Steve, you got one more for Ollie. Then once I go say goodbye.
Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot. You got a horse called IK Brunel. Do you know what he's named after, or who he's named after?
IK Brunel is named after.
Ignore him.
Because Tom thought it wasn't about the engineer who built most of Victorian Britain. He thought it was named after the university. Tom.
It is, yeah. It's about that engineer. My racing PA is listening in, and she tells me that is correct. So
I got absolutely ruined, Ollie, by the fact that I said this horse IK Brunel, and I said, and Jonesy asked me what was named after. I said a university, and I've never lived in that. What can you do?
And IK Brunel was responsible for building the Tamar Bridge. So-
That'd be correct, because Greg Stone, Product Network, is obviously involved in the two horses, and I have a funny feeling he might have named both of them. So that makes a lot of sense.
And he didn't build the university.
Steve,
No,
as
he
you're the
didn't.
expert, was it the Clifton Suspension Bridge as well?
Clifton
Did
Bridge.
that-
They have a horse called Clifton Bridge, so I'd imagine so. Yeah.
But not the university.
There you go.
Not the university.
Ollie, top man, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Charlie.
Cheers, Ollie.
No worries.
And the
there.
episode 3 of The Other Side of the Fence will be out soon, I know, so keep an eye out for that. And there'll be lots more content with Ollie coming up. Cheers, Ollie. All the best.
Take care, lads. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Cheers, Ollie.
Thanks, Emily.
Good stuff from Ollie. That was interesting. Definitely particularly interesting about the horse Copperless coming back. Interesting to see how he gets on. Right, we're going to go and talk about 3 horses each for you. So this is where everyone goes, well, this is the boring bit. Murphy,
Yeah, there won't be anyone still watching, will there?
Done. So we're going to do a star first of all, then we'll have a novice, can be a novice chaser or a novice hurdler, and then some dark horses and any other horses as well. We'll rattle through them, just horses we're going to put up and why we like them. First of all, a star. So who is Sam Turner, the star horse, the confirmed star horse, if you like, that you're looking forward to this year?
Yeah, this is a real dark one, Tom. Facile Vega, champion bumper winner. I didn't really know about this sort of category, really, star horse, whether it was one that was already pretty established. But I just think he's an absolute monster, really. I think he won the Cheltenham bumper in spite of the ground that day. Do you remember? It was a dim and dismal day that day. But he bolted up and carried all before him, then managed to fall in a little bit at Punchestown subsequently. But I think he was over the top a little bit, but I still love the guts and determination he showed to see off Redemption Day that day. And he travelled a lot better than him through that race. But it was when I was at the Dublin Racing Festival, saw him firsthand that weekend when he bolted up at Leopardstown. I just thought, this is this absolute star in the making. I very shrewdly tipped against him in the Cheltenham bumper as well, when the ground looked like it was going to change, and got firmly put in my place, not for the first time, but his trainers sort of compared him to Florida Pearl along the way, and you can just see the class and the style, and just the fact that he covers so much ground as well. Normal mortal horses can't keep tabs on him, so I think he's just, hopefully they keep the wheels on him and he can be a superstar for the years to come.
Over what distance will you like to see him over this year, Sam?
I think he'll probably do, a very Willie Mullins thing, probably start him at 2, but not feel too bothered about stepping him up to 2.5. He doesn't lack speed, obviously, given the performances he's shown. I think he's got both. I think he's got speed and stamina. I think he's deadly. I think he's a bit like Constitution Hill in a lot of respects. I think he's got that much class that he'll stretch out to 2.5, but he'd also lie up with the 2 mile speedsters as well. He's already been round Cheltenham. He's been right-handed. He's acted on deep ground. He's acted on good ground. He's just got every component you need to be a class horse, I think.
Steve, so Facile Vega for Sam. Steve, who is your star horse you're looking forward to this year?
Well, my old pal Edwardstone, who I embarrassingly deserted ahead of the Arkle when he bolted up. But I think this is a horse that can... I think he's overpriced for the Champion Chase. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He was really impressive in the Arkle. And when you go through... He's 16-1 or thereabout, 17.0, sorry, around that sort of price for the Champion Chase. And when you consider Energumene, was very impressive, but that race fell apart last year, the Champion Chase with Shishkin, who has had a problem and is a horse that I've always thought would be going up in distance. And Fernie Hollow's been seen about less often than Sammy's Wallet. And then you're into horses that Edwardstone cannot possibly be frightened of. And I just think last season it all came together for Edwardstone. It was a good hurdler, and he wasn't. He was very competitive in top handicaps like the Cheltenham race. He was 5th in the county and off a big weight and things like that. But he took to fences brilliantly, jumps really well. And the fact that he was beaten at Aintree, I'm not worried about, because he had a hard season, and you don't win the Arkle, even though he was impressive in the Arkle. You don't win a race like that without having a hard race. So I thought it was the typical...
Alan King said he was beaten, no excuses, beaten by a better horse on the dirt, Aintree.
Yeah, well, he's not going to make excuses for a horse that's won 5 times and won the Arkle, is he? What's the point? It just sounds like sour grapes. But he will have no problem beating that horse again, I'm sure, especially on decent ground. And the 2 mile chase category in Britain is not strong. And there's good races like the Tingle Creek and various others. So I expect him to do really well, and I expect him to go to Cheltenham for the champion chase with a better chance than 17.0.
Okay, I'll jump in next with my star horse, which is Brave Man's Game. This is very much with one one race in mind, which is the King George. So I don't know where the plan to start Brave Man's Game off is, but he was obviously disappointing at the back end of last season, having looked very good at Newbury, been pulled out of Cheltenham because of the ground, and then Aintree, he was flat. But what I like about his chances in a King George is that he, although I think that Lucinda Russell has said that they might swerve it with a Hoy Signor, but I can just see when it comes to that race that there might be some that want to be against him, because he's shown that he is fallible and that he can be beaten. But I think he'll be trained with the King George in mind. And then I hear, thanks to Racing TV colleague Josh Deasy, who I know has done an interview with Paul Nicholls, he has mentioned that if he goes back to Aintree, it may be over 2.5. But I think the King George is a perfect race for him. And I just think that whatever he does before then, there could be a bit of value about him, because I think he was beaten at the end of last season, but I think on his day, he'll beat anything. And so I think particularly for the King George, my star horse is Brave Man's Game. Deasy.
My star horse is Constitution Hill. Has run 3 times and has won by a total of 46 lengths. Bolted up in the Supreme. I just think the hurdling division really, really needs a shake-up, and the whole season will probably revolve around Constitution Hill against Honeysuckle. Hopefully Honeysuckle comes back as good as ever. The mares can go off the boil all of a sudden, but I just thought he was one of the most, for the first race, was wildly impressive at the Cheltenham Festival last year. He's put in 2 huge performances at Sandown as well up that hill. Hopefully he stays hurdling and we get to see the 2 of them clash at Cheltenham in March, and hopefully Nicky Henderson actually runs him a few times. Yeah. But yeah, that was class.
Throw in State Man as well, who was very good at Punchestown, who looks like he's going to go champion hurdler. Constitution Hill.
Vauban.
Yeah, Vauban. Yeah, it's not going to be it's going to be interesting, isn't it? I worry for Honeysuckle in some ways, but do you think Constitution Hill's the best of all of them, Dees?
Not yet. Still have to beat. Honeysuckle is very, very good. I don't think she's ever really come across anything that has probably made her run to her full potential. So if she comes back in full working order, it'll be an unbelievable race. It wouldn't be a race I'd be betting on. I'd be happy enough just to watch it.
Just because I'm interested.
How would you price up a match between the 2 of them as it stands? I'm going to ask the bookmaker.
Can I go Constitution Hill 4 to 7?
That's the price I had in my mind. 4 to 7, 11 to 10. Ladbrokes prices.
Yeah. Jesus. I'd have them closer together. I'd probably go 10 to 11 each. Take a bit of margin.
Okay.
About you, Stevie?
Honeysuckle would have to be favourite. Have to be. She's won
Really?
2 champion hills. She's the standard. She's setting a good standard. Constitution Hill has been beating novices. She'd have to be favourite, especially getting the weight. She'd have to be.
Right, moving on. Good
Yeah.
stuff. We've done our stars. Brave Man's Game, Facile Vega, Edwardstone, Constitution Hill. Right, novices. Can be a novice hurdler, novice chaser. Might be a bumper horse from last year that's going hurdling or hurdle onto chasers. Dees, I'll come straight back at you because I know you and Steve were fighting over this horse.
Yeah, Manila Cocooner. I tipped him at Cheltenham and Aintree. He was beaten by. I was thinking about tipping the other horse, the nice guy, but I'm not going to desert Manila Cocooner. I think he is a fantastic front running horse, good honest horse. He's going chase now this year. Jonesy seems to think he's the perfect horse for the 4-mile chase. I think he could be better than that. I just like everything about him, and I know like the nice guy again, very impressive. But I think maybe Manila Kakuna might have left his season behind him at Dublin Racing Festival. He had a hard enough race there, and he was just kind of caught at the line at Cheltenham and then beaten fairly well at Punchestown. But I like his partnership with Danny Mullins as well. I think they get on very well, and I look forward to seeing him over a fence this year.
Sam Turner.
I like Knowsley Road, which was, I think, St Helens' old ground, wasn't it, Tom? You'd be a big rugby league fan with your background.
Brought up on it, mate. Brought up on it.
Yeah. Grew up in the northwest. Looks a chaser in waiting, like a lot of Paul Nicholls' bumper horses, but they bought him out of an Irish Point for I think about 135k, and that doesn't look bad purchase whatsoever, to be honest. He was second at Exeter. He travelled really well in the hands of Lorcan Williams that day and just got worn down late on. And I think Lorcan was perhaps kicking himself a little bit that he didn't make more use of him. Well, he certainly did at Chepstow the next time when he beat one of Olly Murphy's. Actually, we should have asked him about Hero. The horse that finished runner-up to Knowsley Road at Chepstow. And he just ground him into the dust, really. Just a big, long-striding, galloping type who you can just see jumping hurdles over 2.5. The ground softens up a little bit, somewhere like Chepstow, perhaps that early meeting, maybe Newbury in November, one of those early meetings there prior to perhaps even having a look at something like the Challow later down the line if he proves good enough. But he's certainly going to make up into a lovely 3-mile chaser. And I just liked his way of going and his attitude and his temperament. So he will do for me. I think he'll pick up races before looking a better horse over fences in time.
Knowsley Road then for Sam, adding to Manila Kakuna for Deasy. And Steve, you had to check. You liked Kakuna, didn't you? But you've changed.
Yeah, I haven't changed my opinion of Manila Kakuna. I think that is like Dee said, absolutely tailor-made for the National Hunt Chase. Loads of stamina, was coming back at the winner at Punchestown. I thought ran a really exceptional race from the front at Cheltenham in the Albert Bartlett, which it wasn't easy to do. And I think over fences will be a lot easier. And I think in a strange sort of way, jumping her, he did jump right over hurdles, which possibly cost him at the Albert Bartlett. But I think in a strange sort of way, jumping hurdles was more of an effort for him than jumping fences. And I just think he is top class, I think, going over fences. And given that Willie Mullins has got so many options for the shorter races, he's just tailor-made for that race. I really think he's exceptional, like Dee said. But my other one, I'm going for a completely different horse, completely different sex, because Poetic Music is a mare. And we'll be going novice hurdling, and we'll have, because of the way there's plenty of races for novice mares these days, including the race at the Cheltenham Festival. And Poetic Music has already shown that she's got speed, because she was only racing as a 3-year-old last season. She had 2 runs as a 3-year-old, so she's very forward. She had one for John Butler at Market Raisin, which she won. Then she joined Fergal O'Brien and won at Newbury. And then she won the listed bumper at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. Now, all of those are around 1.5 mile 6. And then she went straight from New Year's Day to the festival to run in the champion bumper as a 4-year-old and as a 4-year-old mare. Even though she's getting all that weight, that is some performance to finish 6th. And typically in Paddy Brennan riding, he likes to give these bumper horses plenty of time. So they're ridden from the rear, which was probably the place to be at Cheltenham, but it was very testing ground. And the fact that she was still staying on over 2 miles was really good. And I spoke to Ferg this morning. He said that she's really well, and he's already lined up, hopefully starting her off at Newbury in the coming months. So I think she's going to rattle up a load of wins. And maybe even the Mare's Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham Festival would be, I suppose, the long-term plan if all goes well. But I think she's got a huge amount of ability, and that wouldn't be pie in the sky. And the fact that the British horses won that race, I think they had the first 2. Envoy, Love Envoy of Harry Fry's won it last year. So it's not a race that has been dominated by the Irish before that. It was dominated before that by Willie Mullins, but it was good to see British win it. So, yeah, Poetic Music.
The Yard do well with their mares as well. Did they not have another Poetic something?
Poetic Rhythm was Ferg's only Grade 1 winner when winning the Challow at Newbury a few years ago. Was owned by a good pal of mine, Chris Coley, and sadly didn't go on from there. Had a really hard race with a horse called it was one of Max McNeil's, that great big horse with white around, whose name I can't remember. But...
I remember. Okay, all done there. My novice is Gaelic Warrior, pretty obvious. Ran in the Boodles last year, was an absolute lump of a horse, came over from France and ran a mighty race, was beaten by Brazil. And had he been a bit straighter, although he's probably in the right position throughout the race, but had he jumped a bit straight at the last, I think he would have won. Anyway, it was pretty obvious that, well, from then they said, we'll keep his novice status for next year. I was interested in Willie Mullins' comments afterwards. He said, yeah, we'll keep him for a novice next year and he'll come back for the Ballymore. Done. But so they obviously want to go 2.5 with him this year. He just looked like a horse that was going to improve and improve, I thought. And it was interesting. They want to put him away, keep his novice status. So I thought he was a novice, struggling for novice hurdler, to be honest. But I thought he ticked that box very well. Just completely unfurnished, big but lovely looking individual. And I think they're buying some good horses again, Rich Ritchie and Willie Mullins together, and the likes of Vauban and this horse I thought stood out at the festival as pretty smart prospects. So Gaelic Warrior for me this year to make it into a top 2.5 mile hurdler. Anyone else want to add anything in that division? Are we good? Kick on. Good.
All good.
Okay, so this is the curveball. This is the dark horse. So it could be anything really. Could be a horse that we might be familiar with. Could be a horse that we've never seen before. Deasy, I'll come to you first. Now, this is a horse that a few will have heard of, but why have you picked him out? And what do you think he can do this year?
I'm muting myself there. The horse I picked out is Farlouk Deline. He is Gordon Elliott horse owned by Gigginstown. So he had a long injury. He was a good novice hurdler there a few years ago, but he was off for well over a year. Came back last year. He'd been building enough season. He was beaten at short odds there at Christmas by Master McShee, and then he finished behind Statler, and he turned up in the Broadway novice chase. Now he was a big price. So I tipped him at 25.0 anti-post for it, and people will remember there was a huge gamble on him. He went off 5.5, so he went from 20.0 the night before into favour. I think he was almost favourite on the day, and he fell at the second last. I think he fell at the second last. He looked like he was coming absolutely tanking in that race, and just had a messy enough old fall. Broke my heart. That was the start of an absolutely terrible Wednesday for me. But I think he might be gone under the radar now because of that. There was obviously a lot of confidence in him just for the gamble. He's going into obviously a very, very competitive chase division, but I think he could be a sneaky one that people might have forgotten about. And there was a good horse fell two out in that race a few years ago, who went on to win a few Gold Cups. So hopefully he's another one.
Okay, Farlouk Deline to kick on again this year for Dease. Sam, your horse interested me. Don't know anything about this horse.
Yeah, well, Poetic Music, funny enough, I messaged Fergal this morning as well. He must be sick of the sight of me and Jonesy, because she was very much on my shortlist for this little section as well. But it's another 4-year-old filly I'm going to go for, trained by Joseph O'Brien, called 6 Feet Apart, who raced in the colours of Peter Saville. We did see her on these shores. She won a Doncaster listed race very narrowly, clinging on late on to win under JJ Slevin. I think JJ schooled this filly in a lot of her work over fences during the autumn. I think he's really happy with her progress as well. So she's going to do a little bit of a Riviere de Tel, really. She's going to be running over fences this year. She's going to have the allowances. She's a big girl as well. If you go back and watch that Doncaster race, she absolutely dwarfs the other juveniles in that race. So it's no wonder really that it's taken a little bit of time for her to sort of fill her conformation, fill her frame and start to look the real deal. But I think she'll be a nice filly this year. She had a couple of runs on the flat as well, just to keep her ticking over. I don't think it'll be long before we see her, perhaps in a beginner's chase. She's from the family of Celtic Swing, so she's very nicely bred. And I say 6 feet apart, I think she might rack up 1 or 2 wins and hopefully go on to much better things as the season wears on.
That is how you make a case for a horse that's not very well known. And this is probably how you don't make a case for a horse that's not very well known, but so what? My horse is Between Waters, who won a point and has gone to Nicky Henderson, a mare. I don't know much about her. The point hasn't worked. I mean, she absolutely hammered them in that point. The second hasn't run since. The third has and won, and they're not achieved a huge amount, rated 108, I think. All I know is that she's one of the smarter prospects at home and expected to kick on quite nicely this year for a yard that are obviously pretty switched on when it comes to mares and in particular novice hurdlers. So I don't know much about her, but I wanted to find a horse that hadn't run yet under rules. Between Waters fits that bill, and apparently she's pretty good. Steve?
I'm impressed because I thought when you said this is how not to make a case, I thought you were going to hand straight to me. So I'm quite impressed. You missed an opportunity there, and you rarely miss an opportunity to take the piss out of me. Yeah. Now, my dark horse is also from a dark trainer in Toby Laws, who used to be assistant to Nicky Henderson, used to ride Altior out every morning, and Toby has made a really, really good start to training career. He's in the stables owned by Andrew and Sarah Waits, which housed once upon a time Rough Quest. Terry Casey trained from there, and he's done really well. And he is a trainer to watch, no doubt about it. And I think the horse that can take him to the top bracket is One Way or T'other, who has only run once, won that race at Kempton in February, which was at the big pre-Cheltenham meeting Kempton had with the Dovecut and the Adonis and the big 3 mile handicap there. And that bumper has got a bit of a pedigree of throwing up good horses. The Champ was even beaten in that race a few years ago. Danny Quirwin beat him in it a few years ago. And if you go right back, Riverside Theatre, who was an exceptionally good horse for Nicky Henderson, won it in 2008. And One Way or T'other really bolted up in that race, was heavily backed. Toby had already had another runner in that race that finished third, a horse called Rialta Royale, who'd already won. And One Way or T'other was the horse that was really well backed. So they had a real good line through that. And One Way or T'other bolted up. And I think this is a really smart horse, trained by a really good trainer who's going to make it. He hasn't got many horses. I remember talking to Toby at Taunton, and he was going really well. He was having winners all over the place. And I said, how many you got in? And I expected him to say about 40, and I think it was about 18 or something. And it's the mark of such an exceptional trainer to get the best out of every horse. And that's what I think Toby does. And I think he's got a really good one on One Way or T'other. And the fact that he is trained by someone who isn't yet in the top bracket of trainers will mean that we'll get a decent price.
Okay, One Way or T'other for Toby Laws, who used to ride Altior. Now, any other jumpers to follow? Any others? It can be anything. It can be an anti-post look at a particular race, for example, or just a horse that you think is going to kick on this year. So, Sam, you mentioned all of yours in one go. I know one of them was the filly that Jonesy's put up, but who do you like and what for?
Yeah, for a lot of reasons, I like Poetic Music the same as Steve does. I like James's Gate, who finished third in front of Poetic Music in the champion bumper. He absolutely bolted up at Punchestown first time out, didn't he? And although he was over the top a little bit at Punchestown for their spring finale, you know, I do think he's a horse that will keep on side. I think the dogs were very much barking for him ahead of his debut at Punchestown. He really did look impressive. So I think James's Gate's very interesting. I think his owners and connections might be eyeing something like the Ballymore, I think, given that they sponsor it. Could talk about it, a horse of Colin Tizard's, who took a while just to get his head in front last year, but he ran a couple of times at Taunton. He's a big unit, and he managed to win at Wincanton finally, but I think he's had a good summer at Grouse, and he's grown and really filled his frame, so he could be one to be interested in novice hurdles around the West Country to start with. And just from the same sort of stable as 6 feet apart, Banbridge, who we all saw win the Martin Pipe conditional race at the Cheltenham Festival, and won it well, really gamely, giving Ireland, I think, a clean sweep that day, wasn't it? I think they won every race. He's really scored well, apparently, and 2.5 mile chases will be his bag this year. They're really excited about him going over fences this year. So there's just 2 or 3 names really just to keep on side, perhaps.
Good stuff. 3, as you can see, they're scrolling along the bottom of the screen. One that you mentioned there actually wasn't, but we'll add it into the document. And this will be up on Insights afterwards as well, so you can check out all the horses we mentioned on there. Jonesy, who are yours?
My first one is Statler, who won the race Manila Cocoon is going to win this season in the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham, and won it really impressively. I think this horse is taken exceptionally well to fences last season, and was kind of bucked the trend in the National Hunt Chase that hadn't had a huge amount of experience, but just bolted up. This could be a Gold Cup horse. I know that Willie Mullins has obviously got other options in that, but I think this horse through the season will show that he's 21.0 for the Gold Cup. And when you consider, people sort of turn their nose up at the National Hunt Chase, but in recent years, Native River didn't even win it, was second in it. Tiger Roll won it. Manila Rocco, who was placed in the Gold Cup, won it. Also, Galvin, who went off virtually favourite for the Gold Cup last season. So I think that's a really good horse to follow through the season in the top chases. And the other horse that I've got is Collector's Item, who trained by John Joe O'Neill. And I'm just going to get him up because I can't remember where he won first time up.
Be a Collector's Item if you could.
I'm going to guess Weatherby.
Sorry, he was second in that Newbury race at March, and someone told me that this is a really promising horse. It's owned by a syndicate of John Joe's owners, including Eric Chapman, who's one of the funniest men on God's earth. And I think that's just a novice hurdler that might just go under the radar a little bit and be progressive all the way through the season. So Statler at the top end in the Gold Cup races, and Collector's Item another dark horse, if you like.
You mentioned the National Hunt Chase. One of the horses I'm going to mention, I think, could have that race in mind, is Ashtree Meadow, who ran in the Plate last time and ran well. He's won over 2.5 already. He looks a bit one-paced in the Plate. He's just progressing really, really nicely this year, and he's done that. He ticks all those boxes for that sort of race because he's got loads of experience now. I think he won his first race at the start of the summer, and I'm hopeful that he'll transition up in trip. Maybe not that race, I don't know, but I think he could have a nice season. A lot of time you find that the horses who have been running a bit over summer are a bit discounted because you then get the big boys come back. I think he's got plenty of ability, and there still could be a bit of room off his mark, but he ticks the experience box, and I just wonder if he could make it into a National Hunt Chase type of horse. I thought he was a very good novice hurdler. And the other one is Vornet, who God knows why I'm talking about a horse for the fox hunters or a horse like this, but genuinely, I think he's super talented horse who so it didn't quite work out at Punchestown when he ran into Billaway, who'd beaten the yard David Christie's other horse, whose name I've forgotten, at the Cheltenham Festival. And if he'd jumped the one, he then went to Stratford and won the final there. And I think he was a bit over the top, but he still won easy as you like. And David Christie's adamant that he's a better horse than the one that was beaten at the Cheltenham Festival, and he will run him there as opposed to the other horse probably. He just looks, I think he can dominate that division. So he's also on the list. The other one I was going to put in, Deasy. Yeah, Young Leader, Dan Bussey is team producer. Thank you very much. That was the horse that got nutted at Cheltenham. The other horse I was going to go with was El Fabiola, but Deasy's done it. He looks a proper horse, Deasy.
Who keeps muting me? El Fabiolo, running in the double green of Munir and Suede. He skipped Cheltenham last year and gave John Bon a right race at Aintree before bolting up at Punchestown. I think he could be an Arkle horse this year, possibly, even though it is a hot enough race. But yeah, he looks really good. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. So I think he's one I'll definitely be interested in, and probably having a little anti-post on the Arkle for. And the other one then is San Felicien, the Gordon Elliott horse, who was a big gamble in the Coral Cup, but I think the ground just went against him that day. They obviously think a lot of him because he won his novice last November fairly easy, and then they threw him into a listed race. I think was it listed race? No, the Limestone Lad Hurdle behind and he finished second behind the Rasso, who was a decent horse. And again, there was a lot of money for him in the Coral Cup, which was always going to be a tough one. But not too sure if he's going to stay hurdling or go chasing. But they obviously think a lot of him. Rob Core have a few good horses, I'd say, this year. They're probably on us to be watching as well. But yeah, San Felicien and El Fabiola, and possibly even Galvin for the Grand National, which he should have ran in last year and would have won, but he proved too
good. Yeah, they went Gold Cup, didn't they? Do you want us to add that to the document, Dease? Galvin?
Yeah, I will, yeah.
Go on then. Galvin's going on there. Sam, who was the other horse you mentioned, bud?
Could talk about it. All one word.
Could talk about it, right. We're going to put that on there as well. Good, we're done. Great stuff. The other Olly Murphy horses that he mentioned, just in case anyone's interested wants to follow them, You Can Tango, Rambo T, Little Miss Dante as well. So make a note of those. Don't forget to give us up to a 5-star review on your preferred podcast app, and like and subscribe on YouTube as well, because it makes it easier for you to watch everything that we do. And head to Insights, please, for an update of all the bets that we are putting up. And Peter Punts is back. He says, think I might follow Jeff Kidder. You're still running out on that, Peter. You put it up at a massive price for Cheltenham a year before last. But you are back, Peter, because it's the jumps. We've missed you. Good stuff. Yes. I've enjoyed talking about all those jumps horses. Thanks to Olly Murphy for his time. Sam Turner, thanks ever so much. See you soon, bud.
Cheers, Thomas. Thank you.
Jonesy, top man. Pleasure as always. He's giving the royal wave. It was the royal wave, wasn't it? Yeah, and still is. DC, thanks, bud. Great stuff.
Thanks, lads. Enjoyed that.
We will be back this week with a look at the weekend's action. I can't even remember what it is this weekend. Head's fried, but I hope you enjoyed that.
Newmarket, Thomas.
We've got Group 1s for juvenile.
Yeah. Good stuff. Friday, Saturday. Well, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but Friday and Saturday especially.
All the National Hunt fans are switched off. They're like, what is this? So head to Insights and give us some feedback if you want under the video. Anything else you want to ask about, we could always do a follow-up pod later on in the season. All the best. Bye-bye.